in none of those conversations, and we were all sad, we were all, upset, but not one of those conversations did I hear anyone say, "This is extremely sad. I feel devastated." Not once.
Mhm.
What everyone used was the same English expression, "I'm gutted." And I used it myself because that expressed how I felt. I felt like my insides had been opened up. I felt gutted.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a British English pod and another British English conversation with a wonderful guest that I'm sure you're all really familiar with. And this is the first of a new format of my usual Wednesday videos where I interview different teachers from around the world because I've decided we're going to keep it British from now on. And we're going to have a group of amazing regular guests, and every week we'll be chatting about random stuff, learning new expressions, new slang, new phrases, and, well, having a laugh at the same time. So, Steve, welcome back.
Thanks very much, Lewis. It's lovely to be here.
You see, it's been what, 6 months, 7 months since we first had a little chat. Time
It must be at
flies.
least that. Time flies, doesn't it?
Right. So, tell us, how's your year been so far? Because we did speak in January, I believe. So, how's 2025 going?
To be frank, I've been rushed off my feet.
Is that in a good way or a bad way?
Um, oh, in a good way. I came back into work after retiring, and I've never been as busy. I've never been as busy, to be honest, since I've become a language coach. Online lessons, YouTube channel, teaching in person. I never seem to have a moment these days.
But at least that way you're never going to get bored. Like, I'm so busy myself as well, but it's fun, isn't it? Right?
A wise man once said, "If you do what you love, you'll never work for another day in your life." And I think there's an awful lot of truth in that. Do you agree?
Wait. No, 100%. Like, today, in fact, it is the National Day of Belgium. So, for the vast majority of people here, because I'm based in Brussels, they've got a day off. It's a bank holiday. And I woke up this morning, it was sunny. Now it's clouded over a little bit, but I was listening to a podcast about entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And I was thinking, like, well, yes, I don't have a day off today, but I'm pretty excited about having a chat with you, teaching my classes, recording some videos. So it's a pretty good life. I'm not going to lie.
It's better than working in a coal mine.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Now, anyway, today we're going to have a chat about all things British, or at least we're going to have a random chat about different topics using lots of nice colloquial British English phrases, phrasal verbs, expressions, and whatnot. So I've got a list of random questions, but we're probably going to wing it. We're probably going to play it by ear and
Make it up.
improvise quite a lot.
Make it up as we go along.
So, I've got a question for you, Steve. You ready for it?
Absolutely.
You are born ready, I'm sure. And
I
this is a
fire away.
question,
Fire
I'll
away.
go for it. This is a question which uses a lovely phrasal verb, and it is to veg out, which is like to be like a vegetable and just kind of sit around without moving or doing anything. So the question is, Steve, do you ever just veg out in front of the telly after a long day?
Oh, absolutely. Almost every evening. I work long hours, and when I'm finished working for the day, I'm pooped. And so my go-to thing to do is to veg out in front of the TV. I used pooped there. I think I watched a video you did and you used knackered. I don't use knackered, but they mean the same thing, really tired.
Great. Love it. The fact that you said it, I'm pooped.
Yeah.
So pooped, knackered, shattered, jiggered, exhausted are all lovely options.
That's interesting you say jiggered because some phrases stand the test of time, don't they? You know, as we go through our lives, they stand the test of time. You hear them as a child, you hear them as an adult. But some phrases and expressions, they're like fashion. They come in and they go out. They don't stand the test of time. And I haven't heard the phrase jiggered since I was a child, like 50 years ago. So you've just brought me back. It was a memory. I thought, I think I heard that last in school. So is that a local expression in Yorkshire, perhaps, where you're from?
I mean, I think it is very Yorkshire, mainly because I use it because my mum always uses it. And one of the
Yeah,
reasons
duration.
why my mum doesn't really like saying, well, she doesn't like saying knackered because she believes that knackered sounds a bit rude, you know, it sounds a
Same
bit
with me.
too intense. Yeah?
Yeah, same with me. It must be a generation thing, maybe.
Yeah, like I actually recorded a video with my mum a while ago now, and as part of the script, I was saying, "Okay, mum, I'm gonna say very tired, and you're gonna say knackered." And then she was like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to say knackered. It sounds, sounds a bit too strong, a bit rude." And personally, I wouldn't consider it as being rude, but she does. So then she
Yeah,
was like, "Oh, I could say shattered, or I could say jiggered instead,"
yeah.
which I don't really use jiggered that much with my friends, but my mum will say it all the time. And that's why I'm maybe bringing it back.
Right. Um, I quite like it because it's a memory. It's a funny memory from my childhood. But I find it fascinating how, as I say, some expressions just carry on, and others come in and go out. There's, I, have you heard the phrase "peng"?
Yeah, yeah.
See, I genuinely, because this is a modern phrase meaning something is good, I guess. And the first time I heard someone talking about it, they were talking about someone who was peng. I seriously thought they were talking about a penguin. I thought they were just shortening the. And I thought, isn't that a strange thing to do, to shorten the word penguin to peng? And but I don't think you hear that as much now. Do you know, that's a
Mhm.
fashion. It's come in for a couple of years and it's gone again. It's strange.
No, I know what you mean, and it's interesting now. If anybody ever says the word peng, they're going to think of a penguin. And if you want to try to memorize the word peng, which, as you said, is an adjective which means like good or maybe good looking as well, or you could even use it for like food to say like tasty. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's peng, or she's peng, or it's peng. And to memorize, just think about penguins, and then hopefully it'll stay in your head. Let's see, let's
That's
see.
so funny. Yeah,
But
it's
it's a
very
good point. There are certain words that, like, maybe I'll use in Yorkshire English, then you use different words in Liverpool, and then down south there'll be different slang words as well. And some of them will be like shared, and others, if I say a word and I speak to someone then from Cornwall, they might be like, "What? What did he say?"
absolutely, absolutely. I think in Cornwall, where else can you go and a stranger will call you lover? But you go to Cornwall, everyone, all right, my lover, and it's accepted. It's like perfectly fine. I go and visit your mum. I might get a hey up, lad.
Exactly.
Do you know it's a funny thing, isn't it? The UK for its
And
expressions.
So in Yorkshire, we might say "a up," which is like "you all right?" or "hello, how are you?" "Hey up, mate. Hey up."
Yeah.
And in in Liverpool, you use the word boss, but you don't use boss to actually refer to your boss. Obviously, you do as well. But boss in Liverpudlian English, what does it mean?
Really good. It means really good. It's a little better than sound. So sound is good.
Hmm.
When you're hot and thirsty, cold water, sound. But if someone buys you a bottle of champagne, that's boss.
Okay, interesting. And then I would always associate it with finishing the phrase with mate. That's boss, mate.
Yeah, I guess so. It's accents are made up of it's the pronunciation, but it's also the vocabulary that goes with that pronunciation. Um, it's interesting. There's a pop music band called Oasis who are huge across the world, but particularly in the UK, and they've reformed. Yeah, I'm sure you know this,
Hmm.
and it was hard to get tickets to them. So it was on, it made the national news, and they were interviewing people as the Oasis brothers went into different stadiums around the UK. And to hear how people basically said the same thing, I'm really excited to see Oasis. But depending on where it was, if they were in Manchester, they were buzzing. They were buzzing to see Oasis. Um, if in Liverpool, they were chuffed or made up to see Oasis. Have you got any in Yorkshire where you're really happy and you're excited for something?
I mean, I'd use both of them. I'd probably say if it's excited, I'd use buzzing a lot more. So in Manchester and around Leeds and Bradford, buzzing is really, really common. And then I wouldn't really say made up. I think that sounds a little bit more Liverpudlian, maybe Lancashire in general. But chuffed, 100%. Chuffed, like I'm really, really happy. Or you could even go a little bit further with that and say, I'm chuffed to bits. Oh,
Oh,
chuffed to
chuffed to
bits.
bits. It's one of my favourites. Chuffed to bits.
Chuffed to bits.
Tell you an interesting one about these words because sometimes, and I'm sure you get the same as well from more formal teachers, you, like me, coach modern English. I think our jobs is to help people communicate in the UK easily.
Hmm.
And a problem that I find, certainly for my students, is they've had years of hard work, and it's hard work learning a language. You know that, I know that. And they come straight from the classroom and the textbooks, and they speak a language that's like plain toast. So they expect plain toast when they arrive. But as soon as they arrive and they step off the plane at the airport, they get hit with all these expressions. And that's like the jam on your toast.
Uh-huh.
That's the exciting bit. That brings it to life. But that's the bit that's almost never taught in classrooms. It's almost never taught in textbooks. Our job, I think, is to open that lid of the jar and put some jam on the toast. That's um, that's the best analogy I can come up with.
I like it. It's a really good analogy. Like I'm thinking, like, oh wow, I've got my toast, or I got my slice of bread, put it in the toaster, a little bit of butter, maybe. This is what textbooks give you, and then you have some strawberry jam, and it all just comes to life.
Yes. And sometimes some of these slang words, I don't really like the use of slang words. They're just common words. Most of them are in the dictionary now. Um, they they truly reflect how you're feeling at the time, better than formal language ever could. We do it with humour, definitely. But
Hmm.
let me give you this example. A couple of weeks ago, a Liverpool football player died. famous Liverpool football player, one of my favourites. And of course, it was the topic of discussion amongst family and friends. In none of those conversations, and we were all sad, we were all, upset, but not one of those conversations did I hear anyone say, "This is extremely sad. I feel devastated." Not once.
Mhm.
What everyone used was the same English expression, "I'm gutted." And I used it myself because that expressed how I felt. I felt like my insides had been opened up. I felt gutted. Formal language doesn't cover them sort of emotions very well. Or at least I don't think it does. What do you think?
No, 100%. In particular, with this specific example, like it's true that gutted was the word and the phrase that was being thrown around and used most by different pundits, different fans, all of these fan pages as well. Because if you are gutted, as you mentioned, it's like your insides, your intestines, your guts have been taken out. So then, if you're kind of speechless, you're lost for words, you don't know how to react to this horrible news, then of course you can say, I'm sad, I'm devastated, I'm upset. But gutted is much more visceral. So then it really
Great word.
expresses how you feel in a more dramatic way. And of course, people will be like, oh, how's it going? How you hanging? How did you take the news? And I was like, hey, I don't know what to say. I'm
Yeah,
shocked. I'm gutted. I don't know how to react. I didn't
yeah,
even know the guy, but I'm gutted about it.
yeah. Great explanation. Visceral, great word. Yeah. And I think that's where this type of language is so useful. It has its funny side as well, and even other English-speaking countries get confused by English expressions because, and I'm not talking about ones that are taught in the classroom. For some reason, people teach it's raining cats and dogs. Don't like you. No one ever says that. It's raining cats and dogs. No. So I'll give you a perfect example. First time I went to America, I picked up my pencil. First time I
Okay,
went to America.
we're about to get a lesson.
First time I went to America, I didn't have an iPad. I had a camera and I wanted to write notes about where I was in Alabama, I was in Mississippi, I was driving around. And so I wanted to write notes and I broke my pencil. So I went into a stationery shop, a shop that sells pens, paper, that type of thing. And I said, "Can I buy a pencil, please?" And the American, he was serving me, "Of course you can buy a pencil." So I had my pencil. He said, "Do you need a pad?" No. So far, so good. Everything was going swimmingly. Everything was going well. And I said, "Oh, I'm not a very neat writer. Do you have a rubber?" Now,
Uh-huh.
rubber is this on the end of the pencil. Its proper name, an eraser. Do you call it an eraser? I'm sure I don't. It's a rubber.
No.
In America, tell us, Lewis, tell all your listeners, what's a rubber?
Well, a rubber is something that you would use if you want to practice safe sex. So, Americans might ask, like, oh, hey, have you got any rubbers? Where in British English we'd say, do you have any condoms? So, in British English, a rubber is something you use to erase, to rub out, phrasal verb. Whereas in American English, they would just use an eraser, and they say rubber as an informal slang way of saying a condom. So,
Can you imagine what it was like? Their face was a picture.
it wasn't going swimmingly anymore after
It
that,
wasn't
I'm
going
guessing.
smoothly anymore. I didn't even realize what I said at the time. So even in an English-speaking country, British expressions, they're next level. They're the next level.
Exactly. Now, we've gone over some lovely British English phrases, and I just wanted to go back to raining cats and dogs because you
Mhm.
mentioned that nobody really uses this phrase nowadays in the UK. Of course, it exists. If you want to use it, go ahead, by all means. But it's not going to be the natural go-to phrase that we would use. And we have many, usually phrasal verbs that we'd use instead of rain cats and dogs. The most common one, I think, is it's pouring it down. But if you don't mind sounding a little bit ruder, let's say, you could also use it's pissing it down. So those are my two most commonly used, pour it down or piss it down, but
Are
there
you
are so
taking the
many
piss?
more.
Are you taking the
Oh,
piss?
oh. See, that's something we can go over in a lot more detail as well. Because piss in British English, we can use it in so many different ways. Steve just asked me if I was taking the piss, and no, I'm not taking the piss. I'm telling the truth. Because if somebody asks you, are you taking the piss? They're asking, like, are you joking? Are you kidding? Are you messing around? Are you taking the mick? Are you pulling my leg? So, so many more slang phrases.
Yeah, I think I don't use that phrase. I don't use piss in a phrase. I used it because you did. The but I think it's the absolute perfect example of British expressions because it's English humor. The more someone teases you, makes fun of you, takes the piss out of you, it means they like you more. You know, I would be disappointed if someone was overly nice to me and never made fun of
Mhm.
anything. Do you know, if you said, Steve, you're so old, you must have grown up with dinosaurs, you're taking the piss. That just means you like me, you know?
Like, it's friendly banter. And this
Friendly
is another
banter.
thing which is very common, banter or bants, which is this way of being a little bit sarcastic, a little bit ironic, having a laugh with someone, having a good time with someone, being able to take the piss out of someone in a friendly way and laugh and smile at the same time. That's when you know you've made it. That's when you're like, okay, yeah, we're good friends now. We get on really, really well.
Absolutely. And that's when, as English as a second language person, knows they're using the right language. It's about reading the room. You and I would never suggest someone goes for a job interview in a bank and uses some of the expressions we've used. You know, they come in and say, right, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Oh, I see myself as a manager. They would never say, are you taking the piss? Do you know, it's
Uh-huh.
reading the room, it's the circumstances, it's the context. But that line is being blurred now between formal. It used to be very clear. When I was young, there was formal language that you spoke to your bosses about, you spoke in work, you spoke to people you didn't know very well, you spoke to shopkeepers about. And there was definitely informal language that you talked to your friends, perhaps slightly more formal with your parents. There was categories, and you read the room. You heard what people said, and you said it used appropriate language. Them lines have all been blurred. They genuinely have all been blurred, and sometimes I'm shocked when I see someone who I think you're being a bit familiar, a bit overly friendly with this person, you know. But I'm old fashioned. That's the way the world's gone. So that's the way we've got to teach.
Exactly. No, 100%. Like, personally, whenever I'm speaking in Spanish, people will be impressed when I'm using expressions and slang and phrases that real people use. And then that's when they'll be like complimenting my Spanish. I was like, oh, wow, it's
Yeah.
really, really impressive.
You're putting
But
jam on the
like,
toast.
exactly, I'm adding that little bit of sweetness on my toast. And this is something that I think it's cool for students or English speakers to do because you're creating more of a bond. You're almost showing off a little bit as well that you know all of these expressions. And that's what will make the difference between, I'd say, intermediate or even upper intermediate students to the advanced and near native ones. If you are, as you said, putting the jam on the toast.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting that we're both English blokes, aren't we? Both English men.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, well, I would say this. And I think, well, I wouldn't, but I know exactly what you mean. Joe, you talk about heavy rain. I'm sure neither of us would say it's raining cats and dogs. And you've used pouring down, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say teeming. It's teeming down.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's bucketing down. And if I wanted
Or
to
it's
use an
lashing
animal,
it down.
yeah. If I want to use an animal idiom, I'd probably say it's nice weather for ducks before I said anything else, you know? But it's interesting that we know. It's unusual to come across something as an English born and bred person. You do get it in Newcastle. I love Newcastle people, love their accent, but they have their own language up there that
Mm-hmm.
I struggle to understand.
I mean, an example is I'm going home. So Geordies, people from Newcastle, instead of saying I'm going home, if they're using slang and they're familiar with other people who are also from Newcastle or at least the northeast, they'd say something similar to I'm ganyem.
Yeah.
I'm ganyem. Which is like, what do you mean?
You
Like
sound
I'm
like a
gan,
rapper. I'm
it kind of
Ganya.
makes sense. But yem? Yem? Like how can home be yem? No idea.
Yeah. And they have this great sound. It's not even a proper word. Hawaii. I suppose it is. I suppose it's our way, but it's Hawaii. They put a H in there, H sound at the beginning. Hawaii. And it can mean hello. Hawaii. Do
Mm-hmm.
you know? It can mean come on. Hawaii.
Away the
And
lads.
it's just a noise. But it's a wonderful noise. They are
Exactly.
they are in a world of their own up there. I love it.
Good lads. Good lads.
Ah, one of the best cities in the world, Newcastle.
Going over some more different phrases. You mentioned bloke. So a bloke is a man. I just said lads. Lads are men also, or boys. It's like, I'm going
Yeah,
out with the lads. Like, I'm going out with my male friends. And then the female equivalent, more or less, is lass or lasses.
yeah. Do you remember a few years ago there was ladettes? That's gone now, hasn't it? Ladettes.
It rings a bell, but I don't think I've ever used the phrase.
It was young women in the late teens, early 20s, and they behaved like men of the same age. So they went out drinking, they went out with their friends down to the pub, and you know, and they had the attitude more like men. So they were given this title ladettes. And there were some quite famous celebrities who became ladettes. But it's a fashion thing. Like I say, it just went out of fashion. And now I guess it's lasses. In my day, and this sounds terrible now even to say it, in the 1970s, just into the early 80s, an attractive young girl was called a dolly bird. It was even on TV. You would have presenters on quiz shows would ask for dolly birds to bring prizes out for people to win, and they call them dolly birds. And now it just sounds so wrong. But that was then, Jed. The times have changed.
Mhm. As times change, the vocabulary changes as well. And
It has to.
sometimes I will post videos, and of course, I'm teaching British slang and stuff like that. And then people who are maybe 15 will comment and say, like, nobody really says that anymore, mate. And I'm like, well, nobody in your generation
Yeah.
says that really, but in mine, yes. So it is interesting how the slang is changing over time, and now there will be words and phrases that maybe my younger cousin who's 15 will use, and I'll be like, "What do you say? I've never
Yeah.
heard anyone say that before." So it's something to be aware of. And with the Gen Z, there are always phrases where I'm like, this has become really, really commonly used now. Like the verb to gaslight. To
Yeah.
gaslight someone,
Is that
like
not Trump?
this.
Is that not Trump? I think I heard that through Trump and Boris Johnson. They were always accused of gaslighting. I didn't know what it was. I had to look it up.
I looked it up like a few years ago, I remember, and now I'm watching an Australian English TV program at the moment, and they're using it all the time. And I'm like, wow, like I never used the word gaslight, which, by the way, to gaslight someone is kind of to like manipulate them in a way where it makes so you are manipulating someone in a way where then they feel like they are guilty of doing something. So you are
Yeah.
kind of playing with words in a way to make them feel that they are guilty of doing something when really they shouldn't feel like this.
Yeah. Or they're wrong when in fact they're right. Yeah,
Like
it's
gaslighting.
politics. Politics, isn't it? But some
Exactly.
some phrases they stand they 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 cross over through generations. I've just glanced at this. I know you like a little demonstration.
Go
Right.
on.
So what's that?
That is, by the looks of it, a pound, a quid.
Okay. So it's a pound. That's its official title, isn't it? It's a pound. But you used the common phrase, a quid. My dad, who's 99, would say that's a quid. I would say
Mm-hmm.
it's a quid. My niece, who's a child, would say that's a quid. If you're watching this, I'm really sorry you're not a child. She's a teenager. Um, okay, what's that?
That's the 10p.
Okay, it's two bob.
Uh-huh.
I would call this two bob. My dad would call this two bob, but my little niece, who's not so little, she wouldn't know what two bob was because times have changed. That changed in about 1980-ish.
Mm-hmm.
But quid, still called a pound, so we still call it a quid. Very
And
strange.
then other ones which are the same is £5, 5 quid, we'd call it.
Fiver,
And then £10 or 10 quid, we'd call it.
tenner. But why don't we call a £20 note a 20er? And we don't. Why? I
I'm
have
not
no
sure.
idea.
I'm not sure. Like with these different things, I remember my grandparents would always say like two bob, and there were different names for currencies as well,
A
and
tanner.
amounts of money.
Threepenny
A
bit.
tanner.
Tanner.
There was another one that like farthings or
There
something
was
like that.
farthings, yeah. The farthing was a lovely little coin, and it
Ah,
used to have the national bird of England on.
okay. What is the national bird of England?
I was
Because I don't
waiting for
know.
you to ask. I love this fact. It's a wren. A wren is the
Okay.
national, and the threepenny bit was the one that had edges on that was worth 3 pence. So it was called the threepenny bit, and that had the national flower of England on.
Please tell me, what's the national flower of England?
Thrift.
Okay.
It's a small weed that grows on the coastline of England, and for some reason it became the national flower. Everyone thinks it's a rose. It's not. It's thrift. And so we had the national bird and we had the national flower on 2 coins.
So all of this general knowledge, is this because you go to a lot of pub quizzes, or is it just out of curiosity that you look up random facts? Because I
I've just
feel a
got
bit
that.
useless.
I've um, I've just got one of them curious brains. I need to know what things are, and the internet was a godsend to me. Godsend. That's a nice little expression. It was a gift from the gods, the internet, because instead of having to go to the library or look things up in a dictionary, I can just ask Siri now and she will tell me.
Great. It's true that this is something that I've been doing much more recently, where I don't think I do have the most curious brain ever, but now it's so easy to ask Google, AI, and ChatGPT, and then you can find out all of the information you want with a click of a button. And if I had had to go to the library to find out all this information, I'd have just said, like, I can't be bothered. I can't be asked. I'm not gonna lie.
I can't be asked. I've literally just used that in a video that I'm editing today for my channel. Just used that expression, can't be asked. I thought, should I put this in? It's a conversation in the doctors, which is sort of a semi-formal conversation. And as I was writing the script for what the patient would say to the doctor, I'm playing the doctor. Can you believe it? A doctor. But as the lady comes in, I thought, I can't be asked. I'm going to use it. So it's out next week and you will hear the phrase can't be asked. But I did, oh, is this too much? No, it's used every day.
Exactly. That's the important thing. If it's used a lot, then you've got to teach it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But let me ask you, do you not find yourself when you're sat watching TV or wherever you are and you have access to the internet and you'll hear something perhaps on a TV show and you'll think, oh, I know that actor. What's his name? So you get your phone or your tablet and oh, that's right. What else was he in? And then by the time you've finished looking, your program is finished. And you think, I didn't really need to know all that. Oh, what's his wife's name? Oh, that's interesting. You have to give your head a wobble. That's one of my favorite expressions. Give your head a wobble. Put your sensible head on. You don't need all this information and you'll forget it as soon as you saw it. Live in the moment.
Great. Now, for sure, I think you'll always, you see, if you don't know and you're wondering, like, oh, what's his name? What was he in? Like, you've got to find out. If I'm watching something with my girlfriend and we're like, oh, come on, it's like a competition to see who can remember first. But then if you can't remember after a minute, then you're probably still going to be like, okay, I've got to find out. And then because your phone is always right next to you, you have access to all of the information you want whenever you want. So it's just a question of like willpower and be like, okay, do I really need to know it? Should I leave my phone there? But then I think it's inevitable. You're going to end up looking it up if you can't remember. And then even if you remember, you might be like, let's just double check. I really want to know that I'm right here to like settle the debate.
Yeah. Do you need to give your head a wobble?
And given that we are speaking about telly, which was the question I asked you at the beginning, because you mentioned that you veg out after a long day, what are you watching at the moment? Are you watching any nice series, documentaries, or have you watched any good films recently?
All my life. Well, at the start of my life, I'm so old we didn't have a television. No one in our road had a television. So I remember being a very young boy and my dad bought the first television in our whole road. And all the neighbors came round to watch this little tiny screen. But as soon as I saw that, I thought, cartoons. I have always loved cartoons. And I guess it's nearly 30 years ago now, and the Americans produced a cartoon called The Simpsons. And I could not believe that they'd done a cartoon for adults. So children could watch it, but adults, it had adult themes. I don't mean sexy themes. I mean just grown-up stories that I could enjoy. And then it was brilliant. It was really well written. But then it got a little old, as these things do. But then something called Family Guy came along. And so I got addicted to Family Guy, which was a little bit naughtier. And then the Family Guy people produced something called American Dad, and then Rick and Morty came out. So I'm embarrassed to say it, I love cartoons. That's where I sit and watch a lot of.
Perfect. And then you mentioned Family Guy, American Dad, Rick and Morty. Like, are all of them a similar type of cartoon, or are there big differences between each one?
Um, I'll, you can easily see that the creator of it's the same creator, a guy called Seth MacFarlane, who created
Hmm.
um, Family Guy and American Dad. And you can see easily that he plagiarized a lot of The Simpsons. You know, the same storylines tend to come up, but he just takes it that bit further. You know, whereas The
Yeah.
Simpsons implied things in Family Guy, they hit you between the eyes with it. Um, Rick and Morty is slightly different in that it's more wacky, it's more crazy. You know, they go into space, whereas the other three cartoons are all set in a very domestic situation. You know, it's a family living in a house, driving a car, going to work. Rick and Morty is flying around in space.
No, it's interesting because, like, I don't mind cartoons, but it's usually not my go-to. But I have, of course, watched The Simpsons, Family Guy, not so much American Dad, maybe one or two episodes, but that's about it. But Rick and Morty, I got really into, just because there were some stories and some episodes where you're like, what's going on? I have no idea how I can follow this, but however they thought of these ideas is incredible, and then it can hook you a little bit because there'll be certain episodes that will be really, I want to say moving, but not to make you emotional, but just like, this is crazy. The idea. And then the relationship between Rick and Morty is quite an interesting one to analyze and think of. So it's a good thing for people to watch. If anybody watching this enjoys cartoons, then all of these are pretty cool to watch to practice your English. Obviously, using lots of American English phrases and accents. So perhaps in the future, we need to find an incredible British English equivalent for Rick and Morty and Family Guy. I don't know if there are any out there.
Oh yeah, let's talk another time. Let's put a pin in that.
Mhm.
Put a pin in it. We won't forget it. We'll discuss it later. We'll put a pin in it. Um, but yeah, there's lots to talk about on TV. I liked your phrase "my go-to" or "not my go-to." I thought that was a great little phrase there, meaning it's not my usual. It's not thing I choose straight away to watch. It's not my go-to thing, whereas it is my go-to. Um, we can't stop using British phrases because we're British.
Just just happens naturally, doesn't it? Now, given that you mentioned, let's put a pin in it there. So maybe the next time we can get together, we can talk about cartoons and series because I think it's a topic that everybody loves. Because at the end of the day, now with all of these streaming platforms, usually our go-to thing to do when you finish work is to just sit down, relax, put the telly on, and unwind.
Absolutely. Veg out, which brings us in a complete circle. You sit down, you veg out, you become a couch potato.
Absolutely, a couch potato. Love it. Now, we're gonna have to call it a day because we've got to go. We've got lots of things to do for the rest of the day. But thank you so much, Steve, once again for this interesting conversation all about British English slang phrases and a little bit of everything. As I mentioned at the beginning, we did make it up as we went along. We did play it by ear and we did wing it a little bit. But if you like this kind of conversation, then make sure you smash the like button, subscribe for more, and you can check us out in the next one.
Cheers, Lewis. It was a real pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you, everybody, and see you next time.
Bye bye.
Bye.